Yo, what is up guys, I'm here hitting up with a new video. Today with the long awaited RTA guide, class, whatever you want to call it at the end of the day. I don't even know how I call this video right now. Basically, this content is there just to teach you on how to improve in RTA. That's basically what I'm trying to do with you guys here. And for this specific series or something, I don't think I will just make a complete video because otherwise it's probably going to be over an hour long. So I will split it up maybe in like parts or something. Also, I need to know really from you guys how you enjoy it and if you like it and if I should keep continuing this series, right? So if this video can get at least 100 likes, then I will continue with the series, because only if I see you guys actually want to see that, then it makes sense for me to actually continue this, you know? If you don't want to see it, if it doesn't get traction, then it's like, yeah, then I don't really need to bother with it, right? So that's for that. I'm still really sick, guys, so I'm trying to recover right now. I'm getting better, but probably need like a couple more days. So when you do RTA, the first thing you have to think about is what kind of play style do you personally prefer, what do you want to play, and also depending on your account, right? So I'm sitting here, for example, at MYTHIC right now. I'm ranked 137 right now. I didn't play in like a week or so. This can go up and down depending, but I have overall very high win rate, so I think I have more than enough knowledge to educate you guys on how you want to structure certain things, okay? Those are your bruiser options, right? Not mentioning the other units because everything else is just the supporting cast, depending on what you're fighting. Then we have at tier 2. I cut right to this part here because I was getting out of hand. I don't want to rumble too much around. But we have here a clear picture, okay? So we have Bruiser. This is the tier 1 because those are all your options, your winning options for your team. Then we have the Control, which is the tier 2, which is with all your options you need to make Control work. That is having all the CC and strippers as well. So it is basically a combination of two things right here and right there, which you have to consider when you want to build that playstyle. So this one I forgot as well because she needs to be added here as well. And then we have Cleave, which is tier 3, which consists of only MaTIRiA, where I'm not adding any other units. Like, it's, of course, you could say like here Beyonton, and then maybe like the stuff, the double pump strategy, basically what I cooked up, and then you can put in Tsuki, basically Cleave, right? Doesn't make too much sense overall because it is, those units are supporting casts, okay? Those units do not enable Cleave. There's one key unit, does the job, and everything else is just the supporting cast of it, okay? So you have to keep that in mind. So Cleave only exists with MaTIRiA. When MaTIRiA is not in the game, Cleave doesn't exist. That's why it makes him also the weakest. Play style in RTA, because you need to heavily invest in that unit. You need to heavily invest in that unit, need to be lightest, need to be duped up. And then the supporting cast need to be correct, and the module quality and the shell quality has to be out of the world if you want to make the playstyle work, especially when you're at the top. If you're playing against squishies, then it doesn't matter too much, but that's a different story. But basically, what I'm trying to tell you is those here are the 3 categories. First, you have to decide, okay, what playstyle do you want to play? Do you go with Bruiser? Do you go with Control? Do you go with Cleave? Why is Control now so much? Because Control needs so many different options. You need the strip, which is Heinrich, Plume, and Mia. So those are the strippers. You could also say Holden, but Holden is more Bruiser. But nonetheless, those are your strippers. You need strip because if Bulwark, you can't play that style. So you need something like this to make it work, or even Obo, okay? So one of these 4 because you need to strip. Then you have all your CC options. This is basically Control. And then also you need some sort of damage that comes along with it. So you have here Yali, Gatsby, for example. We could also add now Freya here to the mix. But you know, I don't want to make it too big. You know what? Let's actually put these 2 because that's also more supporting cast than anything. You want to keep it basic here. But this is what you need. And then you have in tier 3, you have the Cleave with the MaTIRiA. Once you decided your playstyle, okay, you say, I want to play Bruiser, I want to play Control, I want to play Cleave. Choose your playstyle, and then you have to think about, okay, what type of units do I have? Do I have the units to back up my playstyle? Or maybe you choose that playstyle because you have the units to back it up. So let's say you decide to play, I don't know, let's say you want to play CC. Okay, you want to play CC, you have a couple of these units built, and the reason why you're playing this is Bruiser is a playstyle you personally do not like, you don't prefer it, it's not your cup of tea, and you just want to kind of counter Bruisers, and that is playing control. Makes sense. Okay, so you build these characters up, and then now we have to talk about, I want to go a little bit into the draft and into the pre-ban, right? What you need to think about. Always build a unit with a purpose, okay? So don't just build any unit up because yeah, it does this. Think about what that unit should achieve in your team, and in what type of situation do you actually want to draft that unit, right? Because not every situation demands the same unit. So for example, if they like to play a lot of, for example, you encounter a lot of support and your opponent plays Reaper shots and stuff like that, then you might don't want to play into it too much with Heinrich and stuff like that. So you want to prefer more Mia because Mia counters that way, and then you have to draw, like you have to build her differently than you have to build a Heinrich, for example. Do you want to put them on Revelation Shell? Do you want to put them on Codex? Stuff like that. This is stuff you have to consider. Always think about, why did you build that character? What is that character doing in your team, right? I think Plume is self-explanatory. She's huge. But when it comes into the actual drafting, I don't know how I'm gonna structure this video, to be honest, guys. So I'm the first, so excuse me if I'm a little bit jumpy, giving you just the basics. So when you go into any playstyle, right, you have starting with diamond. This is what we talk about, not plat, because this is the Wild West. But you have a pre-ban, and then you draft your 5 units with the third into the protected slot. Okay, let me just put in some units here, and basically then afterwards you decide what you want to ban. You have to understand how drafting works, because this is actually the biggest reason if you are winning or losing in RTA. I can jump in a different video more in-depth about it, but I want to just keep it simple for the first episodes here right now. You need to figure out, okay, what do I put into the first 2 slots? What do I ban when I go first? What do I ban when I go second? What do I play when I put my stuff in the protected slot? So how does this entire thing work? I think this is the easiest way to structure this first. So let's assume you're going first, okay? What you want to do is, you know, you have to do 2 picks first, then you have to protect it third, and then you have 4 and 5, okay? So when it comes to 1 and 2, 1 and 2 are picks, units you definitely try to get in your team, because you don't know necessarily, we can go deeper into that with the pre-ban at some point, you don't know what your opponent is playing, so you want to make sure that your opponent doesn't pick your picks. So the first 2 picks are kind of a combination of getting the units you really want into your draft and denying your opponent these units in case they wanted to draft them as well, okay? And then with the third pick, which is the protected third slot, this is your main protagonist, okay? So slot 3 is the MC in the entire draft. It's the main character, because the unit you put at the 3 is the character you 100% all the time want to get through, right? So it doesn't matter the supporting cast, the other 4 units you drafted, but that unit that you put into the slot 3, that is the unit you 100% want to have in your team, okay? So this is the main character slot. And then we have slot 4 and 5. Those are the counter draft slots. 4 and 5 is basically, so when your opponent drafted the first 3 units, or maybe even 4 units, depending on if you're going first or second, right? At this point in time, you already know what your opponent is doing and trying to achieve. And this is the point where you go in and be like, okay, I want to counter my opponent because he drafted in a way. Now I have to think about, what do I draft now in 4 and 5 to counter my opponent, to make it as annoying as possible, right? So these two picks here at 4 and 5 are the picks you want to do, just either to counter your opponent, or your opponent be like, ah, hell no, you're not gonna draft that, and you force your opponent to go for 4 or 5 as a ban pick. This is basically the goal behind the draft. So again, the first two are units you definitely want to have in your draft. The third one is your main character, and 4 and 5 is to counter draft. Okay, so this is something you need to keep in mind. Then also, one thing I want to add here, I will go more in depth in another video about it, is when you go first or second, that is also something when you actually match up, you know if you go first or if you go second, because at the top it says first strike. If it's red, then your opponent goes first. If it's on your side, it's like bluish, then you know you get the first pick. So you know, is my opponent allowed to first pick, or am I allowed to first pick? So you can pre-ban accordingly to that situation. So when it comes to your pre-ban, in general, your pre-ban should be something depending on what you don't want to see. Okay, so you're playing a certain play style and you are weak to something in particular, or that unit in particular is, you have it too, but it is not built right. So you pre-ban that to not give your opponent an opportunity to draft that unit, because it's either really strong against you, or because you maybe didn't even build it because it just doesn't fit into the way you draft, right? So if you play like CC, for example, a pre-ban option would be Doki, just to give you a understanding. Okay, yeah, I want to pre-ban Doki because Doki, when she's going, the Sir is free, she just cleanses every CC, right? So you don't want to deal with it, so you decide to pre-ban the Doki. It's a standard pre-ban for a CC player. That's why I want to go more into pre-bans at another time, but just to give a clear picture here. And then what else we have is as well, so once you basically start drafting, you don't want to give your opponent too much information. That's why, for example, a Plume is by far the strongest first pick in the entire game right now, because no matter what playstyle you're playing, if you're playing Bruiser, if you're playing CC, or if you're playing Cleave, and you get her as a first pick, you are not revealing your cards. What does it mean? If someone, and you notice that probably if you played enough RTA at this point in time, if your opponent picks Plume first pick, you have no information, zero information about what their playstyle is. It could be that they're playing Bruiser, it could be that they're playing Cleave, it could be that they're playing CC, but you don't know, because the only information you're getting right now at this point in time is Plume. Plume doesn't tell you anything. So now you have to do your picks, and then you pick like 2 units here. Okay, so this is the going second part. So then your opponent picks 2 units, or you have picking 2 units, whatever the situation is. Okay, but by already picking 2 units, you kind of have to, depending on how smart you're doing, but we can go in depth more a later time, you have to kind of reveal cards to kind of like make yourself a little bit vulnerable by showing what type of playstyle you're choosing, what are you going for, right? And then your opponent can, or you, depending on the situation, now can respond with a for example, with a second pick and a third pick, right? So you had no information, or your opponent had no information because the Plume was drafted first. You don't know what they're picking, and then they follow up with for example, or you follow up because you were drafted Plume first. Now you follow up with a Mio and then a Heinrich to the protected, because you want to get the Heinrich through, for example. There are many different ways and layers on how you want to do it. I think drafting itself, I want to go more in depth in a separate video, because that one can be huge topic in itself. But basically that is, I think you understand the point of it, not revealing your cards too early, because if you reveal your cards too early, let's say you go in and, I don't know, you draft now Obel first, as an example. You're drafting Obel first. Your opponent immediately knows, okay, I know what you're doing. So you're trying to CC me, right? And then I just can go in and then just pick immediately, for example, a Linglao. Or they save the Linglao immediately for the third protection, because Doki is now in that situation, for example, pre-banned already. So they want to put the Linglao here, but you know what? They also put the Aya in. And then let's say, I don't know, let's take a look here. Oh yeah, let me put in Aya and Lilium as an example, right, at the end of the day. And then, you know what, let me follow up. And then now it's my time. Now I get the Linglao into the Protector because that helps out with the immunity and stuff like that, all the shenanigans. And you're basically already revealing your cards in that sense, right? Or your opponent in that sense even, because you pick the Obel first. You know what? I know you need a Stripper. Let me pick these two units because this one you kind of want and this one is kind of annoying for you. And then I just put this character here just to cleanse in case something goes south. So I think this way you understand maybe a little bit more about not revealing your cards too early, because that will be just it just backfires and you just give your opponent more opportunities to draft correctly against you. And in this game, drafting is 90% who's gonna win the match. Okay, this is how it goes. But yeah, I'm not touching any of these other units because there are supporting cards. If we talk about Linglao, for example, Red Shiaki, theoretically even Kachi the Goat if you want to use them as well, Fushu. There's so many supporting units that help a certain play style. That's why I just want to focus on the main units that are used if you want to play that play style right now, okay? Because this is where it's all about. But yeah, I think I want to already finish this up for episode 1 of this. I hope it was helpful. I know I was a little bit jumpy, but just trying to get the basics down. So first is choose your playstyle between Bruiser, CC, and Cleave. And the structure from then is Bruiser is the easiest to play, CC is harder, and Cleave is absolutely the hardest because of the many different components you have to combine with dupes, speed, gear requirement, everything and so forth, right? And then the strategy that goes behind it to make even certain playstyles work or not, okay? So keep that in mind, choose your playstyle, and then once you have chosen your playstyle, draft, build the units you want to use for your playstyle, build them with a purpose, with the right shell, with the right strategy. Why do I build that unit? Why do I want that unit in my team? And why, for example, when do I want to use that unit? Against what type of team and what type of scenario do I want to use it, right? And then think about what is your main weakness. So this is what you want to pre-ban, right? And then when you go either first or going second is do not reveal your cards too early. The first two is what you want to really get. Third pick is your main character, and 4 and 5 is more the counter draft, okay? This is for episode 1, the summary here, okay? Let me know what you think, right? Because this is also just episode 1, how you liked it, what you want to see in the next part. I think I want to make a whole episode just with drafting. As I mentioned before, guys, if we can get 100 likes, I will continue with this. Otherwise, yeah, I'm just looking for something else you might be interested in, okay? So, as always, guys, if you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to leave a like and a comment down below. I really appreciate it, and see you with the next one. Deuces.